gelatinous 60-year-old man died after falling from the picnic table he was dancing on while wearing only a Jerry Garcia necktie as a bandana. Alcohol may have been a factor.
Today I'm going to change things up a little bit. I'm going to give you a taste of what it's like to grow up in a rainforest. I'm going to show you some of the sights and tell you a couple of stories, some things that are going on, and, just maybe it'll help you realize why it is so wonderful to live here despite all the rain. And speaking of rain, it's raining. It's kind of in the name. So our little bit that we're going to do today is we're going to drive from a town called Sultan in Washington. It's right on Highway 2, which is where I'm at now. It is at the elevation of 144 feet. That's 144 feet above sea level, so we're pretty close to sea level here. Let's see how high we get when we get to the top. We're going to drive up the Sultan Basin Road off of Highway 2, and our ultimate goal is to get to Spada Lake. Now, it's the last day of March, so there's no snow here. It's 41 degrees. So we're going to see what the temperature is up at the top and what things look like. Chances are we're going to find some snow. Okay, here we are, just a short distance away. We are at 666 feet above sea level. We lost a few degrees. We're at 39 degrees and not very far away from where we were. Let's go take a look at where we're at. Here we are. We're at Winters Lake. Now, back 40 years ago when we used to come here, all this undergrowth and brush and trees and stuff wasn't here, and you could just go right down the bank here and access the lake. There were trees that stuck out in there that you could go out on and go fishing. But now, you've got to walk across that log right out over to the main part of the lake and you can go fishing. I've done some fishing here. It's not bad fishing. It's hard to get to, so there's fish in there. But let me tell you a story. You know, every family has one. It's a crown prince. You know, that son that just seems to be better at everything. And my family's no exception. I mean, the good thing about this phenomenon is that when the lesser siblings discover the inevitable chink in the Blessed One's armor, it can be a source of delight that is hard to match. Now, this is a story that really brings that out. I mean, my oldest brother always does everything better. And to his credit, I suppose that when he doesn't do something well, he tries it over and over again until he gets it right. However, in some cases, he lets his determination get the better of him. Now, my brother can hunt really well. I mean, I've never seen him get skunked when he goes out hunting. He always bags his deer or his bear or whatever it is that he hunts for. Fishing, however, that's a sore spot to him. He has spent hundreds of dollars trying to catch a fish. He bought a canoe, the largest tackle box in the store. He had the best selection of lures I've ever seen, a fly rod, a spinning rod, and trolling gear. He bought a hand-woven creel and a net with a laminated handle, and he would bring all his fishing books with him in the boat, just, to have them handy. He kept them right next to his pearl-handled fillet knife. He spared no expense. Even though my brother was on the lake religiously at the crack of dawn every morning with all his stuff,
he couldn't catch a fish to save his life. This went on for several years and cost him no small amount of grief. Now, we would take him fishing with us because we knew that we would get our full catch and his limit too. We would jokingly call him the Great White Fisher because he never caught anything. I mean, in fact, I could get a fish on the line, hand in the pole, and he would lose the fish. It was that bad. Well, this went on for some years, and it cost him a lot of grief because, man, we really took it to him. You know, at some point, a man can only handle so much humiliation. At some point, he's going to snap, and he's going to do something that lacks all common sense. Hopefully, he will only succeed in embarrassing himself with no loss of life or limb when he does one of these things. And fueled by a lifetime of getting skunked by the fish, he decided that, doggone it, this time he was going to remove all doubt about catching a fish. Now, living here in the mountains, there's a little town called Gold Bar, and there's some miners that live there, and they have their mining equipment. And now, if you befriend one of these miners, and then you get him the right amount of moonshine, he will give you just about anything you want that he has. And in this case, my brother traded for some DuPont spinners. Now, if you don't know what a DuPont spinner is, well, let me explain. A DuPont spinner is a fishing lure that is known to be the most deadly thing out there for fish because it's a stick of dynamite, and you just throw it in the water and it explodes, and the compression wave will knock the fish out, and they'll float to the top of the water. You collect the ones you want, and the rest wake up and swim away. Well, it's highly illegal, but desperate times call for desperate measures. Well, at this point, my brother wasn't thinking too clear. He had his DuPont spinners, and he didn't have much experience with them. So he went ahead and he duct taped 3 sticks of dynamite together to an A-frame off of a car and 3 more to a brake disc and put underwater fuse on them. And he knew what he was doing was illegal. So he went down to the lake. He drug his canoe down the bank and into the water, and then he brought down the dynamite and hid it under the tackle box, and he loaded all of his poles, his nets, along with his books, the pearl-handled fillet knife, everything in the canoe, because he wanted to hide it. And as you can see from the picture, this is a very secluded lake. So he paddled out in the middle of the lake early in the morning, and there's a mist over the water. It was peaceful, not a soul in sight. He looked around. So he lit the first one and tossed it overboard and waited. My brother did not pay attention in physics class too well. You see, due to the physical nature of liquid in that it does not compress, the majority of the force of the explosion takes the path of least resistance, straight up. So keep in mind also that a half a stick of dynamite is sufficient for fishing. He used 3. Needless to say, when the charge went off in the lake under his boat, there was this large spout of water that just shot upwards. Not unlike what you see the depth charges in the war films do in the ocean. There's that big spout of water from the explosion shooting straight up. Fortunately for him, it was just under one end of the boat, and so it just stood the boat right up on its back end. All the fishing gear, the tackle box, all 3 rods, the net, the rest of the dynamite, the paddles, the creel, all his books, and the pearl-handled fillet knife all went over his head and sunk to the bottom. Amazingly, the boat was unhurt, and as the water settled and the smoke began to clear and his ears were ringing and he looked around, not one fish floated to the surface. And to this day, he remains the Great White Fisher. Well, here we are at the last sign of civilization, Nighthawk. It's a campground, members only. Yeah, it's a nudist colony. Has been for many years, probably since the 60s. I've only been in there once, and it was on a professional basis. I was fixing problems they had with their infrastructure. I was invited to join, but I didn't. I declined. It's probably a good thing I didn't join. I can see the papers, what would be written in the papers now. Gelatin, a 60-year-old man, died after falling from the picnic table he was dancing on while wearing only a Jerry Garcia necktie as a bandana. Alcohol may have been a factor. Yeah, not a good look. One of the beauties of the rainforest is the ubiquitous amount of moss. And if you look closely, you'll see that although this is a tree, this tree is very much alive. It has moss, it has ferns, and it's still early, so it's not leafed out. But there's nothing dead about this tree. And everywhere you look, moss everywhere, hanging from the trees. It is a definite sign that you are in a rainforest right there. Here we are. We've dropped to 38 degrees. We are at 1,006 feet above sea level. We're running out of pavement. We have a steep grade ahead. The climbing has only begun. The ominous sign of things to come. Here we are at 1,350 feet, 36 degrees. We have our first sign of snow. What a difference a couple of miles makes. Here we are at 1,613 feet. It's 33 degrees. Okay, what we have here is a slide. It's where avalanches come. And if you look right up here, right up the slide, right up there, see how it's all white right there? That's called the snow line. That is where it gets cold enough to be snowing instead of raining. And it's a very marked line. That's the snow level today, right up there. It looks like there's a road there. Now, you can't go up and down every single road, but will we be on that piece of road in a minute? Time will tell. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. We could see it snowing. There we are at the high point. Just over 2,000 feet above sea level. Just a few miles from home. 34 degrees and snowing. Here's the end of the county road. And this is all your directions. Now down behind this gate here is Spada Lake. None of this used to be gated off ever. They've had to put these gates up here after 9/11. And so it really has restricted everything that happens. This up here is the watershed for the entire county, the city of Everett. They all get their water from this lake, Spada Lake, which you can't even see from here, but trust me, it's just the other side of those trees. We're just not allowed to go there. We might be able to next month for fishing season. But right now, there's still snow everywhere. It's a lot less than the last time I was up here. I'll show you a little clip from the last time I was up here, just last week. How things change in a week. Spring is definitely on the way up here in the mountains, and it's gonna be a beautiful summer, I hope. I have another thing to show you that happens in the mountains around here. You'll notice that the water is just crystal clear. I mean, look at this. This is just your basic mud puddle. You can see right to the bottom of it. But every once in a while, you'll see something and it'll catch your eye. You'll see a little bit of water running down, and suddenly everything turns red. And your first thought is, oh my goodness, it's pollution. But no, my friends, that right there is a mineral spring. Right there, where it goes, right here where it goes gray, kind of wet, just wet, to suddenly rusty. That's iron coming out of the ground. Iron ore, iron water, mineral rich mountain water.
And it just turns everything rusty and leaves these mineral deposits. And see how it gets just more and more rusty as it goes. Yeah. There's even a place around here called, not in this valley, called Garland Mineral Springs. Notice how this is picking up a lot of water? That's because it's not just from that one spot back here. There's mineral water seeping out of the ground all along here, making this little mineral creek grow in intensity. Now here's one coming out of the ground. You can just see it gurgling out of the ground right there. You see the water just gurgling out of the ground. That's a mountain spring right there. Is that awesome or what? And that spring adds to this spring, which you're starting to get a real live creek going here. And here comes another one, another spring that's gurgling up. Now these are mostly seasonal springs. Let's see if we can find the source of this one. No, can't. This one is seeping out in a large area. It's not, doesn't have one particular spot that it comes out of this. But see, you can see this right here. That's solid rock. I'm standing on one huge rock right here, and the water's just coming out through the rocks. It's pretty amazing. And so you can tell because here there's almost no water, and as the water comes down, it just gets a heavier and heavier flow until it's like a creek coming down in, and it's a tributary to the main creek. And that just keeps happening over and over again. And here we are, and so you can see the rust in the water still. The high mineral content, and it just flows on down. Keeps getting added to and added to. And next thing you know, this creek is a pretty going concern. That's how creeks are born in the mountains. And this ends up down in Spada Lake, goes into the water supply. And here we are, it's snowing. We made it to the snow line, right about 2,000 feet. How cool is that? So even in rainforests it snows. Well, thanks for watching. I just hope you enjoyed this little departure from normal. Normally I'm always working on the car and fixing things and building things, and you know, every once in a while you just have to take time to smell the roses and go remind yourself why you live in such a beautiful place. So that's you know, not even 20 miles from my home. I can get there. I mean, that whole trip was only 12.5 miles. And we went from 144 feet to over 2,000 feet above sea level. Boy, that's quite a climb in that short a distance. But you know what? That's what living in the mountains is all about. So continue to do a little every day, because a lot of littles make a big. And I hope you like, subscribe, and share this video. Thank you very much.